Welcome to PCN In Depth. I'm your host, Julie Thompson, and in this month's show, we will be talking about attending college. It's a process that can be overwhelming for students and parents alike. We'll talk to some consultants who help this process be more manageable and more streamlined. We'll meet a public high school guidance counselor and a first-year college student. Our objective here is to give you information that will make this entire process more understandable and a little less daunting. Our first guest is Mary Ellen Bavaro, who is a college admission expert to students of many ages. She concentrates on college preparation, selection, and application. Welcome, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Big subject today, very big subject. So let's start with how important is it to start early? Not only in the thinking about college as a whole, but what in people's lives should they be concentrating on all through their school years?
Well, if I told you as early as kindergarten, you'd probably think I was crazy. However, this process has become incredibly competitive, as you know, and it really behooves parents to start early in the sense of getting kids to think about what their interests are, because those interests compound over the years, and there's so much that has to be done and put together that they can't go back and redo.
Yeah.
And you know this, as you said.
Yeah, you don't get a do-over.
You don't.
Yeah.
That you don't want to miss opportunities to really investigate options. It's not so much as, I want to look good at my applications as it is, I want my child to experience as many different things that's going to lead them in the right direction. And you don't want to miss an opportunity to do so. So starting early from the standpoint of just thinking about what are some opportunities that they might take advantage of that could be a direction in college or could be something they might want to do in life. Mm-hmm.
So are these interests that they're right. garnering during and exposing them to all different types of things?
Exactly. So in elementary school, a kid is good in art. That's right. Something absolutely you'd want to pursue.
Sure.
Or math.
Chess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anything like that. Or they're good at sports, or they're good with people. I mean, even just general skills, taking a step back and thinking, are they good with people? Are they good with animals? Whatever. Mm-hmm. And thinking about those as potential areas of interest, and to think, how do I then use school as a way of exploring?
Sure.
Those as potential careers. Even.
Okay. All right. So the process starts young.
Yes,
starts very
absolutely.
Young. Okay. We're taught from an early age that grades matter most. Has this changed over time, or is that still kind of the bellwether?
It is, but there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
Grades matter the most, but it also is grades and the level of difficulty of the course.
Okay.
Colleges don't want to see all A's in a very easy course level.
Okay.
It is far better to challenge yourself.
Okay.
And for a kid to be in an all honors course load and to get B's and the occasional C, or, as many people know now, AP courses are the rage.
Right.
To challenge yourself with an AP course or two and to get, the low B, high C in that course than it is to get straight A's in a standard level course.
So it's the level.
Absolutely.
Now, how about grades versus what you get on your MCAS? Because that's the other big thing, right? What do you get on the test?
MCAS, not so much.
Or SATs.
SATs,
yeah. Exactly.
Well, the SAT is also a complicated issue right now. It's being revised as we speak, and a lot of colleges are talking about doing away with it as an admissions piece.
Really?
Holy Cross and Harvard have dropped it from their admissions.
The SATs?
The SATs.
Wow.
But that could change also because they're also revamping the SAT again this year.
Okay. But it's still grades.
It's still
the number
grades
one.
Of the number one, the level of difficulty of your course load,
yep.
You grades within those, and then I think it's still your extracurricular activities and your kind of overall well-roundedness as a student.
Right. So that's really, really important. Now, do students put that on an application now in terms of writing, or do they do videos, or is there more creative ways of showing a college who and what you are?
Well, you've always heard those stories of the crazy video or the crazy PowerPoint presentation a kid does on themselves. I don't know how accurate it is to even say how effective or how accurate it is, and I don't certainly advise my students that I work with to do that.
So follow the procedure.
But one thing I do with my students is I call it a resume, but it's a very comprehensive summary of everything a kid has done in and out of school their whole lives, from preschool until high school, through high school.
Right.
How many hours per week do they do that activity? How many weeks per year? What did it accomplish? What were their, responsibilities, roles, and what did they, achieve? And I think it's a wonderful enhancement to the application, because I don't know if you know this, but a college application is broken up among several readers in the admissions team.
Yep.
So no one kind of gets the whole picture of a kid. When you ask that the resume is submitted with the student's application or the applicant's application, everyone sees all 5 pages of a student's whole all 5 pages of their well-roundedness.
Right.
And it's a nice way of showing that a student is more than their GPA and their test scores.
Sure. And I assume the longer that they stay with something, it shows a stick-to-itiveness. It shows a dedication.
I like that word.
Yeah, stick-to-it. That was one of my mom's favorite words.
But it is nice because it shows a longevity of interest and something that a kid has challenged themselves with over time.
Yeah, and discipline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, the college application process itself can be incredibly daunting, as I know I had 2 kids that went through it. It's comprised of many moving parts. What are the most important factors to consider when deciding on which college you're going to?
First of all, I think it's important to have an understanding that, number one, students apply to a number of colleges now. I think last year there was a piece done on the news locally that the average student in Massachusetts applied to 9 to 12 schools.
Wow, that's a lot.
Which is a lot, and it's very expensive to apply to that many schools.
What do you suggest?
My average list is about 8 schools.
Okay.
And that's just to give kids choices. And that's, say, 1 or 2 reaches. That's the schools that they'd kill to go to if they could get in.
Yeah.
Say 5 to 6 targets. Those are schools that they have a reasonable chance of getting into if packaged well and really applied well. And 1 or 2 safeties, if you can call any school a safety these days.
Okay.
But that's just to have choices. But I think the ultimate thing in terms of deciding which schools to apply to is, do you meet the qualifications of grades, test scores,
what the school's looking for,
what the school's requirements are, and B, do you feel most comfortable there? And I think that's where visiting either in person or online, taking a virtual tour, and talking to people that have gone there is essential. Absolutely essential.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the difference that can make in whittling down a list from 20 to 10 schools is huge.
Right. Okay. And finally, we had a long talk about what's the most important thing that kids need to learn in high school, and you said the ability to study.
Yes.
Talk about that.
I think a lot of kids go into this process and they think about, where do I want to be physically located? And it all comes down to geography, and I'm always thinking, no, because most of the time you're going to be in a library studying.
Right.
And I don't care if you're only thinking that you're going to be in San Diego to be on the beach. I went to Cornell and I was in a library in terrible weather most days. It's the ability to maximize the resources available to you. And studying, it goes beyond what's assigned to you on a course syllabus. Studying is knowing how to take excellent notes in a lecture, knowing how to read tomes of literature, knowing how to study for a huge test that you never had in high school, because high school you're tested pretty much on a weekly basis.
Okay.
So it's a lot of study skills.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So to wrap up, we have make sure you know how to study. Your grades are really important, but how well-rounded you are is equally as important.
Absolutely.
And I wish we had more time. We could talk to you for an hour. It's a huge process, but you've been very helpful. Thank you so much, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Another avenue students can use to prepare themselves for the college application process is their high school's guidance department. From their freshman year, they're given information and tools to use to guide them through the checklist of what needs to be done to prepare for applying to colleges. We sat down with James Shannon, a guidance counselor at Pembroke High School, for some guidance of our own.
The college process starts the day you enter freshman year. Everything you do from freshman year on counts. All the doors are open to you from the day you enter. If you want to go to an Ivy League, it's an option. If you want to go to a service academy, it's an option. You want to keep all those doors open for you at the end, because 4 years does go by quick. And you want to make sure that when you sit down with your guidance counselor and you say, I want to go to this school or I want to do this, that those are options that are viable. Not 1 year, every year is just as important as the other. As a guidance counselor, I feel that the three main things that we focus on and are a priority with our students are academics, career and college readiness, and social emotional health. When it comes to academics, we want to make sure that the students are always challenging themselves academically with the level of courses in the number of courses they're taking, whether they're honors or college prep or advanced placement. And that advanced placement is the college level course that students can receive credit for. We just want to make sure they're at their right level where they're at and they're always challenging themselves. Career and college readiness, we want to make sure that they are picking a career or a college based on their desire to go beyond what they've learned in high school in a place where they are going to be successful. When dealing with our students that come through the door, there's usually three types of students. The first one is the one who knows what they want to do. They have a list of schools. They've sometimes had older siblings. They've been on college campuses. That they know where they want to go. They come to us. We make sure that their list is a good fit for them, meaning they have a school that's what we call a reach, that don't fit the academics. We have a couple of match schools which they do fit the criteria, SATs and GPAs, and then a safety school as well. Then we have the ones that come to us and not sure exactly what they want to do, so we sit down with them. We have a great career college search program called Naviance, and Naviance is one that's specific to Pembroke High School, our website itself. And it has the schools in there that are all the schools that our students have applied to, and the students can actually go in and see what students were accepted, their GPA and their SAT, and how they fit against those the students from Pembroke High School, because it compares Pembroke students to Pembroke students, which is a great thing. Whereas if you look at a college catalog, that's just nationally, so it's not a good comparison. And then the third one is the kids who have no idea what they want to do. They're all over the place. They want to be a police officer one day. They want to be an accountant. They want to be a wildlife manager. So we have, also through Naviance, we have a link, Do What You Are. And that allows you to go through and take some questions and come up with some possible career choices that you can use. And we use that. Some of those kids, they don't know what they want to major in, but they know what they don't want to major in. So they're not strong academically, or they don't enjoy math, but they enjoy English. So we'll push them towards something in that field. If they like science, we'll look at what sciences they like and what they can do with that as well. With the college application, academics first and foremost they're looking for, as well as standardized testing. And then they're looking at the general overall application itself. Extracurriculars do play a part in that. Did the student join any clubs? Have they participated in sports, any music programs, any plays? And what was the extent of their involvement? And they like to see something that the student was involved 9 through 12. Not just picked up Key Club one day, drama club the next year. They want to see that total involvement. And I tell our students of the student that I graduated with, who was phenomenal, number 3 in our class. He was a bright kid. He applied to MIT, and he got a rejection letter. He was our most likely to succeed, and the reason he got rejected, we were told, is he would wake up in the morning, he would go to school, he would go home, he would do his homework, he would go to bed, he'd wake up in the morning, go to school, go home, go do his homework. That's all he did. You would never see him on campus at all. So they do look to see what are you going to bring to the table, because in college you're only in class 15 hours a week. In high school you're in class 35, 37 hours a week. So you're going to have an extra 22 hours of time on campus. What are you going to bring to it? Are you going to join a club? Are you going to be part of intramural program? Are you going to be part of the school plays and whatnot? So they really want to see what are you going to bring to the table, because in the end, when you graduate, you are a billboard for that college. You're a walking advertisement. Was it a good program or wasn't it?
How prepared are high school students for the whole college experience? There is more to going to college than the process of getting there. Our next guest, Dan Shearer, runs an educational service that helps prepare students to handle accountability, financial and emotional, which plays such a leading role in the transition from high school to college. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Julie.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Accountability changes drastically once a student enters college. What are the pitfalls that they can try to avoid, and how do they prepare themselves for those such things?
It's a big subject, first of all. I guess, the thing that the parents are most understanding about now is the availability of credit cards. That's the biggest pitfall technically that goes on in the college world. But those things are easy to talk about, how to deal with specifically, how to avoid, how to manage, those kinds of things. I think the biggest pitfalls are just the lack of understanding of how the college experience happens. What the expectations are for the rollout of the process. As a freshman, what kinds of things happen, and then what happens as a sophomore and junior, et cetera. And so being prepared for some of the stresses that exist outside of the financial piece are the baseline. You start there. Just make sure that there's an understanding of what the college expects from you, what the parents are expecting in the process, and how these new students can best manage. And that's the active word there, right? It's very important that they understand to learn to manage things. It's an active process, not a passive process.
Right. And it's very different in that you don't have somebody looking over you and emailing you and checking on you and saying, oh, you didn't do your homework tonight. It's on you.
Absolutely, although to varying degrees, right? We talked a little bit earlier about the fact that there are parents who stay maybe too involved,
connected.
right? So there's that you have to be careful of.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're right. Students are really very much more on their own than they ever have been, and they don't know what to expect to know what to ask. Right?
That makes sense.
So just being aware of those kinds of things and research and talk to other people. Figure out who's been through it. What were their challenges, right? You can talk to other people about this. The students can. So that they can be better prepared for what kinds of things they should be ready for and expecting.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's interesting information, and that's important because a lot of kids, I think, don't think of that whole transition that's going to happen.
They think they have to come up with all of it themselves.
Right.
A lot of people have been through it.
And getting to that, in this day and age, young people are very much pressured to constantly be measuring their performance, whether it's on the academics or athletics or even in popularity. It creates a really stressful environment for them. What advice would you give to students to help them deal with that stress?
Absolutely. The stress comes from everywhere. It can be felt by different students in different ways. There are the parents, there are the teachers, the coaches, or themselves, right? There's a lot of pressure that students put on themselves these days. My biggest piece of advice is to take a breath, to relax. The most important thing you can do to be prepared is to have a plan, right? To step back, and again, ask those questions about what kinds of things are going to be going on and how are you going to handle those. What will your schedule look like? What will the pressures of getting through college financially look like? Obviously that's the primary topic here is that all of those things tie together. And if you can understand a little bit about what's coming, you can have a plan, know the steps that you're going to take one at a time to get through it. But the most important thing isn't to rush through it and think that you're going to have all the answers all at once. You just have to take it calmly and get a feel for where you are as you go, and just make sure you're constantly taking steps forward and getting the support you need.
And I would think to understand that you measure yourself through high school against all your high school friends. And then in college, it's such a different environment. It's a whole new world and a whole new ball game. And the rules kind of change, do they not?
The rules change. I think you've been the big dog. Yeah, you've been the big dog in high school, maybe, or you're the senior, and you know a lot more than the freshmen, sophomores in high school. And all of a sudden, you're thrown back into the situation where you're a freshman again. You don't know the people,
anything,
the rules,
the campus.
Yeah. So it's definitely a readjustment, but you have to understand that happens throughout life, right? And I think it's a great example that when you graduate from college and maybe you go on to further schooling, but you also may just jump right into the working world, and again you're going to be a freshman again at that first job, and then it happens again when you go to another job. So this is an iteration that happens again and again, and you just have to start understanding that the way to manage that is cautious planning.
Sure.
And just be thoughtful about what am I trying to accomplish?
Right.
How will I benefit myself the most by accomplishing what kinds of things by the end?
Right.
And how do I get to that point?
Right.
To
think about it, think it through.
Right.
Now, the competency of personal finance is it's a life skill that takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of time, as you know. How can students, whether they're still in high school or in their college or they just graduated from college, understand the importance of managing finance?
One of the things that's become very clear to me is the physiology of the brain at that time in life, and the fact that young people do not have fully developed frontal lobes yet. And that's the process that we're trying to help drive, is pushing our students to think more toward their future. And it's a very challenging thing to do because of the physiology that's going on.
Yep.
But by constantly going back to that sense of planning and
Yep.
where do you want to be in the future, and to begin to think past the week. I mean,
Right.
students have a hard time thinking past today,
I know.
not to mention a week or a month. So we're asking a lot. But it's very important to begin to understand that the time of your life when you're in school is the shortest time of life, right? You're only there for a little while.
Yeah.
You're an adult for a very long time.
Right.
So the transition is important.
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that you're building your brain in a way that helps you be successful as an adult? And it goes back to that. What are the things that we can do today? And it's always about planning. It's the
Yeah.
ability to organize your brain and your thoughts and the different things that you want to accomplish
Does it habits?
financially, academically,
Yeah.
socially.
Right.
All those things have to come together. The nice thing is, if you learn how to do it, I say financially, right? Because financial planning is very measurable. You know how you're doing because you can measure dollars so easily. But the practices that you go through financially apply to all these other aspects in life. So if you can get your arms around the process of financial planning, you can apply those same skills to all other aspects of your life.
So you budget your time, you budget your money, you budget your habits. You
That's
just
right.
learn. It just so what I'm hearing is you saying you're teaching students at a very young age, which we should be doing all the way through, to learn how to manage yourself, your time, your budget, your thoughts, your habits.
Absolutely.
And constantly go over it and over and over it.
Yes, there's no question that it's the iteration of doing it over and over. It's the repetition that gets it to settle in and get comfortable. Because what college kids or young people don't have is confidence.
Right.
Because they've not been there before.
Correct.
The only way you get there is by repetition, doing it over and over and pushing yourself to get there. But we talked about the stress.
Yeah.
This is not to say anybody should worry about that. Understand that everybody has to go through this.
Sure.
If you can be a little bit more focused and a little bit more driven to understand that process, you're going to be much better off and relaxed about it and confident
Perfect.
about it as you get further on.
That's great advice. That's really terrific advice. I wish we had more time because you have a lot to offer and students will get a lot from what you do. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Once enrolled, the college student finds a new world opening to them. Whether a person commutes or lives in a dorm or off-campus housing, the changes that occur in all aspects of their lives are significant. Some students find the transition from high school to college incredibly challenging, but some, who prepare themselves for the many areas of their lives that will change, find the new challenges exciting and rewarding, and ultimately these transitional years can serve to become a blueprint for the rest of their lives. We end our show with a look at the college experience with a junior who is studying at Bridgewater State University. Thanks so much for joining us.
In the United States, the cost of college has risen almost 5 times the rate of inflation since 1983. Students today are not only faced with the financial burden of student loan debt, but they are also faced with a challenging job market after graduation. As graduate salaries remain flat, students are entering college with a heavier sense of responsibility to their debts, and the decisions facing today's college-bound are only an added pressure to what is already a life-changing experience.
College is definitely a lot more independent-minded than high school. In high school, you're graded on your homework, and everything you do is checked and balanced by your teachers, and everything's recorded down to the T. In university, it's a lot more just essays, midterms. You show up, you take the test, and if you didn't do the homework, you're not going to get downgraded for that. It's just a matter of you didn't do the work, so you're not going to get a good grade. So university work and transition in that way is definitely a lot more independent and something that you need to rely on yourself a lot more for. I can say that I felt prepared for what I was going into, but I know that there are some students who don't. I feel that I was very fortunate in going to Pembroke High School and that they really prepared us for what we would be up against in college. We wrote research papers our junior year of high school, but I know students coming into Bridgewater State University who had never written a paper more than a page in their entire life. So I feel that I was fortunate in being prepared in my high school career for being in a university setting, but I don't know that everybody could say that. I think most aptly the money was a consideration part of it in choosing the actual university that I would attend, because obviously the cost of Bridgewater State University is, as low as a third of some of the bigger universities that you might find in the city. So as far as choosing a university based on value, I chose Bridgewater State University because of its great value per dollar, the fact that it's so much less, but you still get the same education that you would get out of another school. The fact that the cost of attendance in college has raised 5 times over the rate of inflation since the 1980s, but salaries have remained stagnant and the same, is definitely a scary fact as somebody who's going to be graduating college in the next 2 years and going into the workforce. It's not something that I find particularly discouraging, because I am somebody who is willing to work at something I'm passionate about, and obviously teachers don't make the best dollar in the world, but it's something that I know that I'll love doing. So I'm not afraid in that my salary will be low and I'll have paid all this money, but it's a scary fact in general that, not everybody has that luxury of being something they're so passionate about.
Despite the national debate over the cost and value of university tuition, Matt Christofori holds on to his belief that his education is a means to an end, and that there is a bigger battle that his generation will face.
The job market's very competitive, but I wouldn't say that I was discouraged by the job prospects, I guess. I know that it's going to be it's going to be an uphill battle to get a job, and that financially with the loans and paying for the loans and everything, that could be difficult moving forward, but it's something that I'm passionate about. So knowing that Bridgewater State University has a nationally ranked education program and also is a great value per dollar, that's what made me decide to go here and bite the bullet and take out the loans. More the life side of it, I do work as a college student. I'm a working college student. I work retail at Lids, the hat store. I try to maintain a social life, and sometimes that's difficult balancing school and work. But as far as the question of if I feel prepared for my career field upon graduation, I definitely think that Bridgewater does more than an apt job preparing me for what I plan to do. I would say that the perception of my generation is that we are chronically undermotivated, and that we're people that are going to enter the workforce with these degrees and not know what to do with them and only be a further burden on the system. And I don't know that that's necessarily true, but from that perspective, what I would say is that my generation just needs to be motivated, and be motivated to be the difference, to be the generation that's going to stop the increase in college cost and level it out and bring up salaries for fair pay for people. We need to work harder. I think that we're a generation that will, and that we will change the game and will change the landscape of education and make education affordable moving forward.